I'm Andy Agathangelo. I'm carrying out this video interview of Karl Newman in my capacity as chair of the Secretariat Committee to the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Personal Banking and Fairer Financial Services. I am also, however, the founder of the Transparency Task Force, which provides the Secretariat to the All-Party Parliamentary Group. Karl, thank you very much indeed for agreeing to have this conversation with me. As you know, the conversation is being video recorded. The video recording will be placed on the APPG's website and will raise awareness of it through social media and so on. Karl, you are carrying out this conversation with me on the basis that you have already provided a written submission to the APPG's Call for Evidence about the Financial Conduct Authority. You've mentioned to me that you don't have your written submission to hand, so you're happy for me to make reference to parts of it if there are bits that you forget to mention when giving your verbal response, okay? So, Karl, first question, please. Could I invite you to, first of all, just tell us a bit about yourself and explain, just briefly to begin with, how you came to interact with the Financial Conduct Authority? Thank you.
Okay, Andy. Well, I actually sold my flat back in London in 2017. With the proceeds from the sale, I had some net proceeds left over, and so I rang up the FCA and asked them about bonds, particularly Bassett and Gold bonds, and actually checked whether or not they were FCA regulated, which they stated that they were. And so I then placed my funds with Bassett and Gold. It was £120,000. It was all my pension money. And then I moved to Scarborough because I had to leave work due to mental health problems. And so I'd actually been off work for more than 1 year with mental health problems. And that's how I sort of first had any dealings with, the FCA, yes.
Thank you, Karl. And in your written submission, you make reference to Galleon Funds Solution. I think you say that you did checks over the telephone, on the internet, and by reading promotional literature, which Galleon Fund Solution AR provided. Is that correct, Karl?
Yes, that's right, yes.
Okay, so you invested into Bassett and Gold, and you mentioned, I think I got the figure there, £120,000?
That's correct, Andy, yes.
And was it like most of or all of your pension fund?
It was actually most of my pension fund.
Okay, okay. And you go in your submission to say that in November 2019, you received an email. Can you tell us about that email?
Yes, I had an email from Anthony Margolis, who actually worked with Bassett and Gold, and he emailed me basically saying that they were actually dropping the FCA arm of the business, which made me really nervous because obviously I had £120,000 with the company. So I asked to have my funds returned, actually due to this email. And they wrote back to me saying they'd had a directors meeting and they promised I would have my funds returned, which never happened.
And I'm just going to read out to you what you say in your written submission. You state, the company wrote to me and promised me my money back in January 2020 and said it would be 90 business days. In April 2020, the firm went into administration. They had lied to you and deceived you and never paid your capital back. Is that all correct, Karl?
Yes, that's right, Andy, yes.
Okay. The next question for us, question 3, actually asks how much you'd invested. You've already answered that. It was £120,000. You say in your note here, I invested 120,000. It was all the money I had put aside for my pension. I do not have any of that money left. Ouch. Number 4, what was supposed to happen as far as you were concerned with your money, and what actually did happen as far as you know, Karl?
Well, so when I actually placed my funds with, Bassett and Gold, it was actually FCA regulated. And I'd actually checked with the FCA whether my funds were safe And if the worst would happen, what would happen with my funds? What would happen with my money? And I would actually promised it was all regulated, it was all asset backed, it was protected. It was also FSCS protected as well. So if the worst should happen, I'd have my funds returned to me. That was all actually written with the website. It was relayed with me via the phone and also in emails as well.
Thank you, Karl. And I'm just going to read out what you put in your submission. You say, my money was supposed to be invested in small companies, property and businesses and stocks and shares. Instead, all bondholders' money was invested in Uncle Buck payday lender. We were never told about this. Is that correct, Karl?
That's right, Andy, yes.
Okay, question number 5. Have you ever witnessed any actions or conduct that, in your reasonable belief, breached any law, regulatory code, or applicable or relevant policy? If so, please tell us more.
Well, I just think that we've actually been lied to by the FCA. I mean, basically, we've actually rang up each month asking about our funds, asking about our claims and things with the FOS, and we've been lied to. We've been told different things. I'm actually on the Facebook group with lots of other bondholders. Most of them are old people. And we've actually rang up each month asking about our funds, and we've all been told different things, made promises. We've all probably waited more than 1 year with the FOS for our money. Nothing's happened, and you know, we're actually still waiting.
Thank you. And Karl, you mentioned the FOS. By that, do you mean the Financial Ombudsman Service?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And again, because I know you don't have it to hand, I'm going to read out what you wrote in your submission. You state that, I believe Bassett and Gold was a scam. It was corrupt. There were lies, deceit and misleading information. Bondholders were lied to and robbed of their life savings with written promises of high interest rates and cast iron security. And you've just gone on to say that since it happened, you and others in a similar position to you in your Facebook group have been chasing up monthly to try to understand what's going on about your loss. And you are stating that you're getting misleading and contradictory information from the FCA and the Financial Ombudsman Service. Is that pretty much what you're saying, Karl?
Yes, Andy, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Number 6, what, if anything, do you believe the FCA could have done that may have prevented you from allegedly being scammed in the first place?
Well, because it was actually regulated, I think that if they did more checks on the people that have actually got platforms on there, you know, basically Gallium and, you know, Bassett and Gold, then if they regulated them properly and actually did the checks, none of this would have ever happened. But obviously they haven't checked, they haven't looked into things, they haven't done their job properly. And that's why this has all happened. And that's why we've all lost our money, because the checking hasn't been done. It hasn't been properly checked and actually regulated.
Thank you, Karl. And you make some very interesting points in your written response, which I'm going to read out here, Karl, if I may, because you make reference to the AR status, the appointed representative status of Gallium funds. So your written response is, I believe they should have regulated Gallium fund solutions properly, as they were FCA regulated, and scrupulously checked what they were doing. As appointed representative for Bassett and Gold, when I rang FCA initially before I invested, I asked whether or not Bassett and Gold was FCA regulated, and I was told yes, and all of the promotional material said the same. What they did not tell me is that Bassett and Gold had many different arms of the business, and that the bond I was investing in was not directly regulated by FCA, but through FCA appointed representatives, Gallium Fund Solutions. Only Bassett and Gold Finance was fully regulated, but they did not tell me this nor make it clear. If I would have known this, I would never have invested. Is that, to your mind, still how you feel about it, Karl?
Yes, Andy, that's right.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you, Karl. What interaction have you had with the FCA about what happened since then?
Well, I've actually wrote to them, I've actually rang them and stated that I've lost most of my funds for my old age, and I've had emails back from them saying that they can't really help me. I have to actually either get in touch with the FOS or ring Gallium. They haven't been any help whatsoever. And I know from the Facebook group that they haven't even helped anybody. People are actually, all people are sick with mental health problems. They haven't offered any help to anybody. People have put claims in. They've offered people money and then not paid them the money for the claims. It's ridiculous. It's really, really bad.
Thank you, Karl. And again, with your permission, I'll read out what you said in your written response. You say, and by the way, Karl, your written response will also be put onto the APPG's website underneath the actual video bit, okay? Your written response is, I put my application in for compensation to FSCS, that's the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, on 7th of April 2020. They made me wait until November 2020, then rejected my claim. I then made a complaint to Gallium Fund Solutions, appointed representative for Bassett and Gold. They made me wait until end of January 2021 and redirected me back to the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. I then appealed to the Financial Services Compensation Scheme and they made me wait a further 5 weeks before rejecting my claim. Now the Financial Ombudsman Service has my complaint and they have had it for 10 months with no end in sight. I have also made a complaint to the Financial Conduct Authority, which has been deferred. Is that to your knowledge or still how you feel about the situation, Karl?
Yes, Auntie, that's all right. Yes.
Okay, number 8. How well or badly do you think the FCA have performed in your case?
Really, really badly, with no care, no respect. It's really, really bad. It's really, really bad.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We'll go to question number 9. What do you believe the FCA could have done better once they were aware that there was a problem?
Well, when, you know, the FSCS first posted about the problem, when they actually went bankrupt, they said that they would promise to actually look into companies who were regulated before B&G Finance was sort of put on board, but they never looked into that. So obviously they'd made this problem that they were going to look into Gallium and Thornbridge for pre-2016 bondholders. Nobody's ever looked into that, so they've made all of this money, these, you know, promises, but yet they haven't actually done anything. I think that if it was probably regulated and if care was taken that they were actually looking after clients who had lost all this money, they should not be sort of making promises and actually lying to us, making us wait for more than 1 year for our money back when it was FCA regulated.
Thank you very much. And what would you say about the FCA's effectiveness and timeliness in taking action to protect consumers?
They've actually taken no action to protect us. We've just been left in the dark with no help, no support, no backup, and they've just been absolutely ridiculous, really bad. Okay.
Number 11, how helpful has the FCA been to you and others affected in securing redress from the alleged guilty parties and in prosecuting or banning them so they can't do it again?
There've been no help whatsoever. I've actually raised this once because the FSCS have actually paid out on all claims for B&G Finance, so they've found wrongdoing and they've paid out more than 18, I think it was 18 million pounds to B&G Finance clients who had put their money in after the 1st of March 2018. So this admits wrongdoing, but yet the administrators have not filed for prosecution for the directors or for the staff of Bassett and Gold. And Gallium have still got more time to react and they haven't paid out any claims. So it looks like everybody's on their side and no one's protecting us. So it's very, very wrong.
Again, Karl, with your permission, I'm going to read out what you wrote. Your response in written form is, they, being the FCA, have not been helpful at all. There are around 200 bondholders awaiting outcomes from the Financial Ombudsman Service, and the FCA has not banned gallium fund solutions. It seems they and the Financial Ombudsman Service are taking their side, giving them more and more time in extension on cases. In 12 months out of 200 complaints about Bassett and Gold, the Financial Ombudsman Service has only allocated 12 complaints to investigators. 3 of these investigators found in bondholders' favour, but they seem to be giving and helping gallium with unlimited extensions and timeframes. It seems as though they are not on the consumer side. Thank you again, Karl, for that. Question number 12. What are your thoughts on whether the FCA lacks the powers that it needs, or conversely, that it doesn't make good use of the powers it already has?
I don't really think that it's got a lot of power at the moment. I think it needs sort of restructuring. I think it needs a sort of big major restructure, because obviously if they've got firms in there which are going bankrupt, which are actually robbing citizens of their life savings of money, old citizens, then they are not properly regulating companies who are on their website and on their books. So I think they have to actually regulate properly, and they have to be more strict with measures, work in a much more detailed form, and obviously actually, you know, protect us.
And question number 13 for you, please, Karl. In general terms, how would you describe what it's been like dealing with the FCA?
General terms, I think it's been really, really vague, really, really bad. They don't actually respond to us. I mean, I've actually raised things with my MP, and I've also wrote to Rishi Sunak as well, and I've had no reply, no contact, no support. I've actually tried everything. I've actually rang the FCA, rang the FOS. We've just been fed lots of lies, lots of different reasons, and actually nothing's happening, nothing at all.
Number 14, Karl, what's your perception of the culture of the FCA, and what do you think about it?
I think it's actually disgusting, and I don't really know why they can actually call themselves the Financial Conduct Authority when they have no financial conduct, they have no regulatory powers. It's just an absolute mess. It needs a restructure, and it just needs all change, and it has to be more powerful, more on the side of the consumer rather than the firm side. It's just really, really bad. It's terrible.
Oh, thank you. And what do you think about the possibility of conflict of interest issues at the FCA?
I don't really know what you mean by that, Andy.
It's all right. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Karl. I'm going to read out the written response you gave, and it might trigger you to
thank you.
think about what you said. No problem at all. This is what you previously wrote. You wrote, yes, definitely. I have another complaint with the FCA about Charles Randell and Christopher Woolard, directors at the FCA, ignoring my warning signals about Blackmore bonds. I definitely think there are conflicts of interest, as they tend to side with the FCA firms and not consumers. Could you just elaborate on that, please? Could you tell us a bit more about what it was that made you suspect there might be something wrong with Blackmore bonds?
Well, it was actually well before Christmas last year when I were actually with Blackmore bonds, because I put with them 28,000 in bonds, and when they stopped making the interest payments, that made me really nervous. And that's when I actually wrote to the FCA. I wrote to Charles Randall and Christopher Woolard on more than one time, and I'd never had any replies from them. And now I have a complaint with the FCA, which I put in last March, which they've had for a year. and I've had an email back this week promising me compensation, but I've never had any money back from it. I mean, I actually think that they planned on paying me £75 for my problems, you know, for my time, and I haven't even had this money yet, and I've actually been waiting a year.
So just to be crystal clear here, you lost money through Blackmore bonds and Bassett and Gold.
Yes.
Thank you, Karl, for clarifying that for me. Thank you very much. The next question is about whether you've officially complained about the FCA. I think you've already answered that, but let me just read out what you said. You say, yes, I complained to the FCA about Bassett and Gold roughly 9 months ago, and you submitted this consultation response a few months ago as it was. I have had to chase up, and now my complaint has been deferred until a further notice. I also complained about Charles Randell and Christopher Woolard, exactly as you just said, Karl, who are ignoring your warning emails about Blackmore bonds. Again, no final response as of yet, and it was 10 months ago at the time that you wrote the submission. They do not handle complaints properly, is what you state in your response. You still feel that way, Karl?
Yes, Andy, that's right, yes.
Okay, thank you. Question number 17. Overall, what have been the consequences to you and, if relevant, to your family as a result of what has happened?
So with me not having my funds back now, I've had to actually move flats once more, because this flat that I actually bought with the proceeds of my London sale is quite a big property, but because I haven't got my funds back, I've had no funds to spend. And so I've had to actually sell this flat and downsize. That was the most recent thing that's happened to me. And I've had to buy a much smaller place and then hopefully get some funds out when it's sold to actually live on, because I've got problems working with mental health problems, so I can't work. And that's where I am at the moment, Andy. And I have been ringing up each month to the FOS, asking them, when will we be getting our money, when will we be paying? But, you know, it's just lies, and we've just been strung along, and now I've had to actually get rid of my home. I've had to move.
Thank you again, Karl, for explaining this to us. Question number 18, please, Karl. If you could change 3 things about the FCA, what would they be? Please do say what your response to that question is, and if you wish me to, I can read out what you wrote as well. Thank you, Karl.
3 things I would change. I think the first thing is that I would hope that they would actually regulate more properly. And the second thing is to bear in mind the consumer. And the third thing I would say is, don't really know what the third thing's going to be.
That's okay, Karl. That's absolutely okay. If it's okay with you, Karl, I'll read out what you wrote, which lines up exactly with what you just said, by the way. You say, first of all, regulate properly and with force. Secondly, you say, vet all firms properly before giving FCA approval. And thirdly, more courteous, friendly and knowledgeable and helpful staff to help consumers on the telephone, Karl. That's what you wrote. Good man.
Yes, that's correct.
What positives are there about the FCA that you'd like to comment on?
I can't really think of any, actually, Andy. You know, none.
Okay, that's pretty much what you wrote. Number 20, excuse me. Do you believe there should be spot checks by the FCA on regulated and or unregulated entities, perhaps similar to the spot checks by VAT inspectors?
Yes, definitely so. And if the spot checks had actually taken place, then Bassett and Gold wouldn't have been able to trade Blackmore bonds, lots of other bond companies also that have been regulated that have also gone bust as well. So yes.
Thank you. Number 21, the FCA is undertaking a transformation project. Do you have any comments to make about that? Okay, Karl?
No, I haven't got any comments to make.
I'll read out what you said earlier. You said to take note of what consumers are saying to take into consideration the Gloucester report and what all whistleblowers have raised, learn from complaints and history, listen and act, and for God's sake, regulate firms scrupulously to avoid corruption and fraud. And number 22, are there any other comments that you'd like to make, Karl?
Yes, there are a few actually. The first comment is with the administrators, that I can't really know why they haven't filed for prosecution of the directors and the staff of Bassett and Gold. That's the first comment that I would like to make. And then the next one is, why hasn't the SFO been contacted? Because obviously there is £37 million missing out of bondholders' pockets. There's lots of elderly bondholders, lots of people with mental health problems. We've been robbed and conned out of our life savings by these people, and they haven't even filed for prosecution. They haven't even got them in courts, because all that they think about is their fees, their payments, and they don't really care about us. That's the first thing I would like to say.
Thank you, Karl. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Karl?
Let me just have a quick look at my list that I've just made very, very quickly.
While you're looking at that list, Karl, I'll read out what you wrote in your original submission, okay? Then if there's anything else you want to add, you're very welcome to do so. Yes, if you wish to, okay? What you wrote was, there are roughly 290 bondholders on the Facebook group. We have all been scammed. The administrators for Bassett and Gold are covering up for directors and staff there. There's been collusion. It needs investigating. There is £37 million worth of bondholders' money missing, and the administrators are not contacting the Serious Fraud Office, as their fees will be frozen if investigations commence. This is corruption and fraud on a huge scale on the lines of the LC&F, and it needs to be exposed and dealt with by relevant authorities. That's what you said in the written submission. Do you still stand by all of that, Karl?
Yes, Andy, that's correct.
Thank you, Karl. And was there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
No, you know that I actually think that we've touched on most things, but it's just the waiting time with the FOS. Now it's been more than 1 year, and obviously lots of bondholders have rang them up, written them emails every single month. We've all been lied to and actually told different things, different excuses, from COVID to staff problems to specialist people not able to deal with our claims. But the 3 claims that were actually found in favour of bondholders was last year. They haven't even been paid out. It's just been put on hold and delayed for months and months. And I don't really know what's happening with it, because it was FCA regulated. We've all lost our life savings. We all can't be wrong. And if the FSCS has actually paid out more than 18 million to B&G Finance customers, then that obviously points to wrongdoing. So why we actually kept waiting? It's really, really bad, very bad.
Karl, thank you very much indeed. And may I also thank you for carrying out this video interview with me. You've only been able to make use of your phone to do this session with me, and because of that, you've not been able to refer to your own notes, or indeed you've not been able to print out your notes either. So thank you for allowing me to read out the previous written submission that you provided when I did so. Karl,
thank you, Andy.
Thank you very much indeed, and we appreciate what you've done. We'll be putting the video recording onto the APPG's website, as well as your original written submission, as I said earlier. And thank you very much indeed, Karl. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, Karl, that was excellent. It really was. It really was. So the editor will cut it there. So this bit we're talking now won't be part of the.
Oh, that's good.
Won't be part of the conversation. But you did a great job, and I just want to, man to man, thank you for what you've done, because that can't have been easy. And my personal view is that people like yourself have been treated appallingly really, really appallingly. And we just hope that somehow the FCA is made to do its job better than it has been, not just for people who've already been harmed, but the inevitable people who are going to be harmed in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Karl. What are you doing? Anything else for the rest of the evening? Watching a bit of TV, having a drink? What are you
Maybe
doing?
have a little glass of wine and actually play with my dog. Play with little Gladys, my dachshund, and have a glass of wine and
yeah, that's good.
some treats.
Good. Well, enjoy your time with Gladys, and thank you for giving me some of your time today.
Thank you, Andy.
Cheers, buddy.
Thanks, Andy. Take care. Thank you.
Bye. Good luck.
Bye-bye.